a lot of people now are coming forward saying there's a good chance that this could be secret US military drones. I am not going to push away from saying that there is a strong likelihood that these are man-made advanced drones.
Those with a need to know within the U.S. government have known about technological, non-human presence in our world for decades.
I think there's a very thin line between the phenomena and these drones because some of them are very similar. I think some of them are secret tech. Well, now we've even got people at the Pentagon level saying the same thing.
If in fact this recent phenomena is connected to the disclosure process, it is worth considering these events are a message from this technological non-human presence. Get it done.
Is there a phenomena aspect, although what we're seeing could be, some of them could be human-made?
Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks.
Welcome, everyone, to this special report on Higher Journeys. You know, it's not often that I cover what I sort of colloquially call lights in the sky, but I would be remiss if I did not at least begin the conversation, or I should say continue. We have covered some of this in the past. Look, there's been a lot of very, I'm going to say, anomalous activity that's been going on in our skies, above and beyond the multiple sightings that are reported daily. We're talking about it's loosely referred to as the UFO drone mystery, or UAP drone mystery. We're talking about these very, very coordinated drone-like objects that have been reported. They have been photographed, and we're even hearing now that the FBI is covering some of these incidents, including multiple sightings in New Jersey, actually in Morris County, back in November of just last month. Langley Air Force Base, we're still not clear whether there's been more recent sightings, but certainly back in December of last year, but possibly October of this year, as well as the UK. These things seem to be going on sort of concurrently. So I wanted to bring on an expert, somebody who I admire greatly, who's joining me today, and that's none other than Steve Mera, to really dig into what may be going on here. And moreover, what do our authorities know, both here in the US as well as the UK, that once again, they're not sharing with us. So without further ado, Steve Mera, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Alexis. It's really interesting. Do you know, there were so many of these things happening all over the world at the same time. It's growing. There's big concerns, you know, very alarming, actually, concerns in regarding the infiltration of civilian and military establishments with these things. You know, and it's just becoming to a point where we really are. It's becoming a very problematic system where it's causing infrastructural problems for various countries, you know, and not just for us, for the US as well. We've always had our own share as well in the UK, but it's seemingly on the increase worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you're mentioning the UK and the fact that this is such an urgent matter. They're considering it such. In fact, it was a journalist by the name of Christopher Sharp. You may know the name. He's the editor-in-chief as well as the founder of Liberation Times over in the UK. And he goes as far as to say, Steve, that he believes that out of MOD, Ministry of Defense, that it is considered a national emergency. That's where you guys are right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do believe that, and he's absolutely right. I mean, you know, they're not going to announce this. You know, they're not going to throw all this information out about how concerning this is, but it is. And I mean, we have some phrases in regarding, look, what's been going on in the world at the moment. Could it be coincidentally tied to this? You know, I mean, we do know that we all have, our governments, the capabilities of holding and keeping secret advanced technologies. We know this. We know we're always finding things out, you know, and suddenly we go, well, how long that's been on the scene? We find out, well, it's been on the scene for 30 years, but we're only finding out now. You know, we have these types of drone technologies. We absolutely do. But the big question is that what is the dividing line between what is UFO or UAP on the new terminology and what is ours? And it's in a sense where we can't identify them because it could be one of two things. But because of the way these things are acting, because of the so obviously look to be like drones of some sort, we're starting, a lot of people in high positions are pointing their fingers at the Pentagon, at the Ministry of Defense, and other countries to say, you know what, it's very likely that some of this technology is our own.
Well, I think you have a little bit to say about that. As a matter of fact, a couple of quick announcements. And by the way, this is going to be a fairly short segment. We just want to kind of hit the critical points right now. But we have some images that we're going to be sharing, and perhaps some evidence that you can present to your point that this may indeed be ours. I say ours very loosely, meaning human versus non-human. However, guys, we are going to touch upon the phenomena side of this, and if there could be some form of, let's just say, NHI influence, tangentially, directly, I don't know, Steve. Another announcement I want to make, we've got someone else that's going to be joining us hopefully in a few short minutes, and that's none other than Stephen Bassett. Y'all know that name. He's all over the DC report, and so I figured it would be wise to also fold in the UAP congressional hearings that just happened about 3 weeks ago. Of course, this was somewhat prominent, this issue of these incursions happening within the testimony, both on the part of Congress and the witnesses as well. So those are the things we're going to be touching on. Let's talk about Manchester. We're talking Manchester Airport in the UK. This, again, is this is a civilian airport, of course, but these anomalies are happening there. Tell us about that.
Well, it's one of a number of international airports in the country. It's quite large, Manchester, and I live local to it. Manchester Airport is no stranger to UFOs. Let's just get that out. They have had a number of incidents that have taken place over the years. Their protocol at ATC Block Tower at Manchester Airport is to downplay it. It's to say, well, do you know what? We haven't got an official report. We don't know really what it was. We don't know if it's legitimate or what all the authenticity is of photographs and videos. That is normal protocol. Look, we had exactly the same thing take place at O'Hara Airport. Major UFO incident took place in the US. And do you know what? It just totally downplayed and tried to control the whole situation. Manchester International Airport also do the same thing. I think it's protocol to deal with this matter like that. But in this case, it was not just somebody who was, going to travel on an aircraft that looked out the window and accidentally saw something strange. No, this has come from a pilot himself on the tarmac of all places, stationed in one of the taxied vehicles or aircraft, civilian aircraft. And he looks up and he sees this. He immediately thinks it's a drone. It's spherical, but he several things to think, well, it looks a little unusual. There are no visual blades on this, as we'd normally expect to see on a drone, because drones require an input of air and an output of air to keep them aloft. It's a sphere. So where are the propellers? It wouldn't work if they were sealed inside a sphere. This thing comes down to the ground slowly and hovers literally a foot off the tarmac, casting shadow onto the tarmac. He decided to take out his cell phone. He took some video footage of it descending from the sky. He took some photographs whilst it was down on the actual tarmac. Now, what's interesting is that he took it on his Apple iPhone, and he put this straight out on his Facebook feed. Mm-hmm. And it was only when he sent it to a friend. They all work together. They all talk together. Pilots. I've talked to pilots, my friends at the Manchester Airport. They confirm everything that's been out. Now, these friends came back to me and said, "You know what? You've got to be a bit careful. Maybe you shouldn't put it out on Facebook, because these companies that he represents, be it British Airways or whoever they are, they don't take kindly to that. It could be detrimental to your employment, to be honest with you. You should have thought twice about maybe putting something out like that." So he quickly took it down, but not fast enough, because people saw it within minutes, grabbed it, and then he went back on, took it down, the posting, but it was already out there.
Yeah,
so it got leaked out. And I have to admit, it's very interesting footage, because I cannot identify. What we can say is that we've looked at the video footage. We've looked at the photographs. It's come from his Apple iPhone. And what's really good about the Apple iPhone, it makes a backup in 4K of photographs. So obviously there was a really good 4K photo of this thing. And you can clearly say it looks so strange and weird. It's unusual. It doesn't look anything that you could identify as a drone, as what we might have. Mm-hmm. And it got leaked out, and it's out, and the press picked up on it, and the information got out there. and it is authentic. We cannot see any doctrine, any AI. It's authentic. As to what it is, we don't know.
Let's take a look at it. As a matter of fact, we have that here. I hope I'm
Well,
bringing up the right one, and you let me know if it's not. But I think, yes.
Well, around about the same time, because this has happened a few weeks ago. Now, we've got this recording. This is, many people in the US will recognize this. There's the drone. It's flying relative. Now, this is slowed down to see that it's spherical. And this is a daylight video, and there's the normal speed of these things. So they do traverse quite quickly. This is what we're seeing at Manchester International Airport. It's about a foot over the tarmac. You can see the reflection, a bit of water on the ground because, we have a lot of rain over here this time of year. And it's reflecting, obviously, about a foot off the ground. It's unusual. It looks, you'd say it kind of looks metallic, and it's got that hue, that colouring, that metal colouring. And you can see the reflections in accordance to the light that day. And it looks, it's got unusual ridges on it and cracks in it. And this is the same object that the pilot filmed up in the sky above the tarmac, as you can see. And he's in the cockpit at the time. And then he took a photograph as it came down. This is the photograph, and you can see just in the distance there near the ground that the object came down slowly, descended to the ground about a foot away from the tarmac, and milled around a little bit for about maybe 30 seconds or so, and then lifted off and went back up. Now, the main thing about these incidents is it causes a massive problem, the infrastructure at airports, because as soon as anything's flying over the airport that they cannot identify, they tend to down aircraft. This has happened in China. It's happened. Do you know what? It's happened in many countries over this year. There's been lots of incursions, and in fact, they've had to ground all traffic, air traffic, until they know what the hell is this thing. In airspace, it could be, it could be detrimental, it could be damaging. So there's certain dangers and protocols. So they decided to reroute traffic. Some of the aircraft already meant to come and land had to get rerouted to other airports. Landed craft couldn't take off. So what's happening here? It's the infrastructure is really damaged. Absolutely. And we know through protocol and practice that this is one of the key strategies that countries do to other countries, causing dysfunction in the infrastructure of the country.
Absolutely.
And this could simply be, is it from another country? I mean, we've got to consider the times.
Is that what we're saying? Let's cut to the chase.
It could be. I mean, look at what's been going on in the world, very heated moment at the moment. And, even though that people aren't talking about it and saying anything, I absolutely guarantee we're in what might be referred to as like a DEFCON 2 situation. In other words, we've stepped out of normal alert mode into hyper alert mode. And we're sat there kind of, oh my God, what's happening? What's going on in the world at the moment? Lots of strange things. Everybody's just walking on the edge at the moment. And it's scary. And it could be part and parcel of reconnaissance and the infrastructure of the country, just making sure. I don't think they're flying them over from other countries. I think we've already got, people in our country that represent Russia or China, and we probably have their countries. Yeah. So we might have that tech to be able to put out and send all that data out somewhere. Right. But one thing is for sure, they're seemingly acting intelligent, as if they're controlled. They act as if they're drones, but they don't identify or look to be drones. And these spherical things have been seen all over the world. And there's some very good footage from Iraq that's come out of these things flying over military bases. Ones with strange signs or looks to be an unusual language wrote on the side of one of these things. So I am not going to push away from saying that there is a strong likelihood that these are man-made advanced drones. And I'm not the only one to say that. There are many people now coming forward, even at Pentagon level, which will say the same thing, which I'll be able to ask Steve Bassett a little bit about. He might have a better idea of what was happening.
But let's get back to the Pentagon. Why is it that they are not broaching this, at least not in a public forum at all? I mean, look, I want to bring this up. Let's talk about the also recent sightings that have been happening in New Jersey, specifically in Morris County. One of the, and I believe it was what is the military base in near Morris County? I think it is, oh gosh.
Well, I know,
the Picatinny Arsenal military facility, which is
Yes.
also near the Trump National Golf Course. Now, this happened in November, just last month, to the point where, official agencies are looking into it. I believe the FBI has been now looking into it. There have been New Jersey State Police that were tracking these drones. And speaking of the FBI, there have been some reports, obscure as they may be, that some of these drones are appearing over the agents that are investigating these accounts over their homes. Speak to
Yes.
that. What the heck's going on there?
Well, do you know what? I mean, that leads me to intelligence. And when I talk about intelligence, I mean secretive inside work done by governments or officials from other governments. That type of agencies do intelligence on who's monitoring what. If they're monitoring us, we're monitoring them. Sometimes you got to take also in consideration, they want to be seen. They want to cause concern. They want to, they want it out there. They don't want people. Look, if they wanted to be a situation where they wanted to be covertly not seen, I'm sure they could manage to do so. But they're happening to be black and flying around on the sunniest of days. It's so easy to see a black thing moving through the blue sky or white cloud. So yes, they want to be seen. It's not like they're moving at tremendous speeds. It isn't.
But a lot of these drones, I think, that were reported specifically in New Jersey, were they'd show up at night. I know that there was one woman, I can't call her name, who's been giving her own account, her testimony to the authorities and the media, and she says that it was happening on a nightly basis, and they would hover over in residential areas for in excess of an hour.
Yes, we have them in the UK. But what's interesting is, though, when they're seen at night, they're illuminated. I mean, you got to ask the question, why, if you don't want to be seen, are you illuminating for everybody to see you? It's like, hey, look at me, notice me. Because if you wanted to do things covertly, they just wouldn't have any lights on and they could go about their business and nobody probably look up into the night sky and notice anything. So it's like, it's all about, the presence. It's all about identifying that, yes, there's something here. Now, one of the big problems is having a drone where, which can stop and just stay in the same space, because you might have military aircraft go out there, but military aircraft are moving 200, 300, 400 mile an hour, sometimes that faster. They can't just stop on a penny, and these things can, and that's problematic because they're flying past them at 300 or 400 miles an hour, and suddenly they just stop. And an aircraft can't, so it's got to go past it. It's got to go around, and it's difficult for them. Now they're trying to ascertain whose are they. Now, for a pilot, they have to get permissions and things. But the big question is, could it be even some of it, even our own technology, which is being test flown, or it's being utilized in some type of operation we're unaware of? We've talked about before about other drones, possible drone technology. We have lots of specialists coming forward now in high places, professors, which are talking and basically saying that there is a good chance that the Tic Tac UFO, because if we could talk about Tic Tac UFOs, I mean, drones come in various shapes and sizes. Could they be spherical with a square inside, a cube inside? Some people have reported, pilots have reported them, or the spherical, or the pill shaped, or the Tic Tac shape, and things like that. So drones can be various different shapes, but usually between 2 meters and 30 meters. Is usually the given size.
Some of these reports have said they're car-sized, some larger.
Most of them are car-sized, around about that, between 2 and 6 meters. Is most of them. You take the Tic Tac. I mean, it's about 35 feet in length, allegedly, according to the sizing of military aircraft that pursued them. And a lot of people now are coming forward saying there's a good chance that this could be secret US military drones. And it sounds ridiculous at first because so many people are saying, well, come on. I mean, how is a pilot in them going to survive, the maneuvers it does or the speeds it can travel? And the question for mine is, well, okay, is there a pilot inside? Because drones don't necessarily need a pilot. I mean, you've got AI technology, we've got all sorts of things now that can fly things. I mean, it was back in 1983, a fighter jet was flown by a rat brain. A brain of a rat. It flew a fighter jet. I mean, that's back in the 1980s, and we've come on a lot since then. And that's the stuff we do know, not what we don't know. So it's very likely. And now we're waiting, because when people first came out like that and said, like I did a number of years ago, I don't believe that this represents the phenomena. I think there's a very thin line between the phenomena and these drones, because some of them are very similar. I think some of them are secret tech. There was raised eyebrows and saying, Steve, it can't be. Are you sure? Well, now we've even got people at the Pentagon level saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And more people, as time's going on, are coming on board and pointing the finger not at that direction of phenomena. They're pointing it right back at the US government, saying, you've got secret technology. You've got fighter pilots seeing these. They might be on an incursion, an operation. They're just sent out to, how are they going to react to this, our pilots? Well, they were told to not arm. They didn't go out there and arm, on the days of the Nimitz seeing these things. So they didn't want probably weapons on them, on the aircraft. So the pilots saw them, thought they were UFOs, and they won't know better. They won't know anything. Because pilots are pilots, and they're not supposed to know, really, the secrets.
They're not supposed to know. They're not read in. So here's my question. If this is the case, I'm going to try for the moment to give our government or whomever is on the inside of this benefit of the doubt. Let's just say they're testing out the viability of they are being detected. But I guess what I want to say is, could there be an element of their secrecy in this to protect in any way? Or is this completely a malevolent exercise? I mean, is there some justification for why they're being so clandestine about it?
I do believe, obviously, because secrecy is a big thing. Most of the money spent on people say, how many billions of dollars are going into the black budget program this year? And it just swallows up. Most of that black budget program money is spent on keeping the secret, not the programs themselves. It's the secret. Can you imagine how many people have to keep these secrets and controlled? It's a massive, massive problem. And it's a growing concern. It's a growing problem. And we get leaks and people say things, and even the head of Lockheed has been out and said many times, the technology we have, you'd think it was UFOs and things like that. So now we've got to really consider, yes. And when they're going to test fly them, we're going to test fly them in military zones, out of prying guys, no ships, no flying aircraft over from civilians. It's a perfectly capable zone. It's like a new Area 51 out at sea at this time, away from prying guys. Nobody's going to see any of this going on. And it's a lot more secure. The thing is, when pilots are going to see them, they're going to report UFOs. Those incidents in 2004 Nimitz, they allowed the pilots to say, do you know what? You go and talk about it. I mean, in history, we don't see that. We see, look, if it's something unusual, we can go back and look at reports and incidents, and we can say, well, the pilots were told not to say anything, and they couldn't. But they didn't mind pilots talking about it, because what's the pilots going to say? The pilots are going to say it's a UFO. So they want to help process this information, get it out to the general public that it represents UFO phenomena, and it takes them away from the blame that it might be exotic, might be secret advanced technology that the pilots are pitted against, and they don't know. They don't prepare the pilots. Just like, if you're in the military and you're walking through the forest one night and Company B jumps out on you to assault you, they're not going to prepare them. They want to see how they react under the scenario. And this is the same how pilots. It happened in 1973 and 74 with starfighter pilots pitted against, believe it or not, the F-117A Nighthawk, the stealth fighter, back in 73 and 74. And they couldn't understand what they were seeing. I'm sure some of them pilots probably reported them as UFOs. So these operations do take place. And I think because all of a sudden the encouragement to open the doors and say, the Washington Post, the New York Times, oh, do you know what? We've never touched UFOs, but hey, you know what? Let's open our doors. Let's do it. There was some type of help, assistance, or wanting to get this information out to the general public, and that's to take us away from the blame that this might be secret technology that we are using.
Absolutely. I'm not only looking at the clock, I'm looking at some images here I want to get to, and I'm hoping that Mr. Bassett will still be joining us, because we're a little behind time. But nonetheless, while we're waiting, I want to talk a little bit more about that, because you're making a really good point in terms of things that we thought might have been phenomena that you are saying almost emphatically, and others kind of agree that we're talking about our own technology. Let's take a look at. I'm going to actually. Let's see. I want to go back to, there was a particular, here we go, right here.
Yes.
Speaking of which, let's talk about 2004. We all know about that, right? Well, of course, the report was in 2017, but we're talking about the Tic Tac, the famous Tic Tac on the USS Nimitz.
Yes.
What are you saying here? What's
Well,
happening here?
this is recon drone, and basically what happens is the technology that came out in 2004 after 3 days of manufacturing, putting it all in and getting in there to get it out there, and then there's this operation. It's just so timely. I mean, it's strange. It's unusual. I mean, there was no better opportune moment 3 days after all this equipment, specialized equipment, was fitted in the Roosevelt, Nimitz, and so on, that these things turn up in traveling at incredible speeds, can't really get picked up on radar. But these systems are designed to get past that. And it basically creates a net. And anything passing through that, even if it's stealthy, like the stealth fighter, even if it's not being picked up on radar, by triangulation, by a number of different ships, the Hawkeye and numerous other pieces of equipment that they have fitted to aircraft and satellites as well now in orbit, on geostationary satellites, they can create a laser map. In a sense of speaking, anything passing through it is detectable. This is how they wanted to get past the problem of stealthy or speed.
Right.
Anything will be detectable, including Tic Tacs.
Okay. So you made a really good point. I want you to reiterate this so no one misses it, Steve Mera. And that is, you're saying that 3 days prior to when this Tic Tac was sighted, just 3 days, the aircraft were outfitted with technology to repeat that for us, because that's important.
Yes, I mean, we've got the USS Nimitz, the USS Roosevelt. We've got equipment fitted inside those ships, inside destroyer ships.
On the aircraft carriers. Okay.
There is satellites in orbit. There's aircraft that carry certain types of equipment like the Hawkeye. And by triangulating and passing this information between them all, they create a laser net. Anything, even a stealth fighter would not get away. Anything passing by at tremendous speed would not get through. This was new technology to detect high velocity or invisible aircraft. And when I say invisible, I mean radar invisible, because we know the US have got them, and if they've got them, you can bet your bottom dollar Russia and China and everybody else has probably got them.
So you're saying the Tic Tac was staged by us?
I think it was a perfect opportune moment for them to test the operation of this system, because they needed to prove it worked. And how do you do that? Well, we're going to need super speed aircraft and some things that might be radar invisible and things. The Tic Tacs turn up, perfect. The aircraft pilots don't get told not to carry any weapons, so they go out unloaded from weapons, so they don't want them firing on them. And literally, within an hour after the incident, strange people turn up on a helicopter, land on the ship to take away all the radar footage, all the information of that operation. They want everything and take it away. And they said to the pilots, you know what? Talk about it if you want to talk about it, because they know they're going to say UFO. And that's the big thing.
Stealthy. I'm going to use that term.
Stealthy.
My gosh. Okay. This would be a good opportunity. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, y'all, that Mr. Bassett, he may be having a hard time getting on StreamYard. But guys, if for some reason we miss him on this go around, there will be others. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But in the meantime, maybe we'll conjure him, because I want to get to the UAP hearings that just happened a few weeks ago. Seems like so long ago. The UAP hearings titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Exposing the Truth. Was the truth exposed, do you think, during these hearings? Or was this, as Richard Dolan calls it, a nothing burger?
I love Richard. I love his quote. And he is absolutely right. It's another burger. I mean, how long have we been at this? We can go right back many, many years to the Citizens Against Ufology movement. We've had the other hearings. We had the disclosure program. We've had so many of these things. And now we're into the UFO hearings again. And you know what? When it starts getting interesting, it's like all of a sudden the red tape pops up. Well, we can't talk about that because of national security. Every time there's critical information required, all the government does is stamp it with a national security, and nobody's going to find out anything.
Yeah.
And the general public don't get to find out about that. It's frustrating.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm going to give, I had to kind of review again. I watched a good part of it, of course, when it was live, but I wanted to kind of go over some of the opening statements of both the witnesses as well as the congressional representatives. And I have to say, I'm going to give a shout out to Rep. Nancy Mace from my new neck of the woods in South Carolina. She did a fantastic job co-chairing this. I think she was the one kind of leading the questioning, and I wasn't too disappointed in her straightforwardness and kind of getting the witnesses to get to the point. But one thing I will say that I'm sick and tired of hearing, and I believe one of our reps made reference to this, is, during the line of questioning, so many of the answers were, I can talk to you about this in a closed setting. Stop with that. Stop. I
know it's frustrating, but the people they're talking to have to have the clearance to hear it. It's not about people saying it. Yeah. They've got to make sure they've got the clearance to hear it, and that has to be behind a closed door. And I'll tell you what's going on behind the closed doors. I all know they'll be turning around and saying some of this technology is ours. We can't talk about it because we're not allowed to reveal the technology that's involved in the creation of them. That's the big question. Where's the tech coming from? And that might lead us back to the phenomena. But, now we've got a specialist coming forward. Michael Turber is US intelligence specialist. He stated the Tic Tac UFO from 2004 is not from outer space. When he was pressed to comment further, no, can't tell you anymore.
Wow. Yeah.
Now he's not the only one. Now we've got the former Pentagon UFO chief who's revealed and concluded the existence of UFOs and suggests the majority of mysterious sightings are likely due to advanced drones. Now that's coming from the head of ARROW, the UFO Pentagon program. And now we've got, if we look at these recent hearings from 2024, the UFO hearings, now we've got Dr. Gallagher, right? Yes. Or Gallaudet. He made a statement there. He was there to see for everybody. He said, I had a private meeting with ARROW. They shut the door and they told me some of this stuff is US advanced technology.
Mm-hmm. He also made mention, he shared claims, I believe, on the record about a mysterious deletion of related data from military email accounts, this same gentleman.
Yes, it is interesting. I came across a document and it was from Israel. It was from an Israeli military paper. And back in 2014, their military establishments were being buzzed by things that they could only describe as pill-shaped drones, Tic Tacs. Now, they're not shying away from using the word UFO. It's all over their documents in different things, UFO this, UFO that. But what's in this document? Well, they launched aircraft time and time again to scramble them to get them out. Can't catch these things. They're super high velocities and maneuverabilities, and they would just dart off out the way, just like a Tic Tac would. But they didn't say UFO. In the official document, it says American CIA drones. In their document from 2014, so I believe there are people on the inside that know about the drone wars. Sounds like something straight out of a Star Wars film, to be honest. But the drone wars, we are living in the era of drone wars, where we can have drones do multiple things and can infiltrate because they can slowly move. High detection, high velocities are easy to detect with radar because of the disturbances, but slow. Well, it could be misidentified as a balloon, misidentified as a bird. They're not going to bother. So rather than having all these misidentifications, they set the radars to identify things above a certain range, like fast-moving aircraft. Even 200-mile-an-hour small aircraft would get picked up. Drones moving so slow that they're going to, not get detected. They're going to be able to infiltrate a location very easily without people even knowing and survey it. And I think this is what's happening worldwide, apart from the fact that we are, and probably like many other countries, have drone technologies. I've seen patents from China. I've seen patents from Russia. They've got these things. And now it's trying to find out, well, do you know what? They don't put numbers on them. They don't put, US property on them. There's no markings. There's no numbering to identify these things. That's what they want. And I'm sure the countries are doing it and it's getting mixed up. Are we seeing some of theirs in our skies? Possibly. Are ours over there and in our skies as well? Highly possible.
Wow. You've given us a lot to chew on. Listen, you guys, before I forget, and this is super important, I need you. Steve and I both need you to weigh in. We want to get your thoughts on if you've been following this still unfolding saga, I'm going to call it that, the mysterious drone sightings and incursions. What do you think this is all about? Do you agree with what Steve is saying? Do you have another thought? Have you yourself had any similar sighting? I'd love to hear from some of y'all in Morris County, New Jersey, but I know it's happening all over. So please let us hear from you. By the way, we're gonna start to wind this down. I need to make an announcement, Steve Mera, or shall I say, we need to make an announcement.
Yes, interesting. Yeah.
Drum roll, please. I wish I had my little sound machine here. As we can, and this is in all seriousness, we see this is going to be a continuing and a sustained story, for lack of a better word. God only knows what will be unveiled in 2025. The mystery nonetheless continues, and the stories continue to come in. And so with that, because this is such a hot button issue and will be probably for the foreseeable future, Steve Mera and yours truly, Steve Mera and myself, have decided to go forward and cover this on a regular basis. We're calling this UAP and beyond, because guess what? There is a beyond. There's a lot more. We didn't even get a chance to touch on the phenomenological aspect, Steve, of this, and we're going to save that maybe for the next episode. But this will be a co-hosted special series, UAP and Beyond, with Brooks and Mera. So I am just so excited. We're also, so Steve and I are going to be co-hosting this. We're going to be bringing guests on, and hopefully Steve Bassett will make it next time. I don't know what happened to him. I have a feeling he had a hard time during this Mercury retrograde, right? Surprised, not at all, to get on the StreamYard link. But that's the big announcement. We're so excited. And I know there's a lot more that you have to share with us, Steve. So give us your thoughts on what's coming up.
You know what I mean with UFO, UAP, the new terminology, which is very befitting, of course, because it covers such a vast thing. Not does it just cover structured craft now, it also covers intelligent light or plasma phenomena. It also covers advanced drone technology, all falling in. You notice we're away from UFO into UAP. It lets other things come into this area bracket. And of course, we are seeing this transition. This is what we're going to be doing when we're talking about the beyond section, UAP and beyond. And there is a beyond, because now we're really, and not just us, there are many specialists out there, physicists, doctors, professors, people in government that are coming forward and realizing, you know what, there's a spiritual aspect to some of the true esoteric parts of this true phenomena. There are paranormal contributes or attributes to this phenomena. So it isn't the simplistic thing that we've been dealt with. Is this kind of ruse to say 70 years we've been living with this. It's coming from outer space. They're traveling the vast distances of space to come to planet Earth. And it's a very nuts and bolts solid crafts and using exotic engines. Well, you know what? Sometimes it seems to be like that, but nothing is as it seems with this phenomena.
They brought up the interdimensional component, if I'm not mistaken, and was it Elizondo that brought it up? That word was used in the just recent congressional hearing.
Yeah, I do believe, Lewis knows about some of this stuff like I know, because I'm in a number of think tanks and you get to hear things. Some things I can't talk about, but you get to hear things. And there is a transition away from the narrative to a new narrative. I think it's going to take some years to sort of digest this one, because it's a big pill. It's a big pill to swallow, and when the CIA looked into this big pill area, they used to make references from one CIA document to another department, and they were publicly released through the Freedom of Information Act, and we could look at them, and they kept referencing WSFM. And everybody was thinking, what is WSFM? They're looking into the UFO phenomena, the CIA. What is this? Is it a private organization? Is it a special project? You know what we found out eventually? WSFM is an internal phrase for weird science and frigging magic, because they couldn't understand what is the physics that's involved in this, because sometimes it seems to be the true phenomena is metaphysical.
Absolutely. And they know that.
Non-physical.
Yeah. Let's leave it there.
We've got so much to come in these episodes. some
Absolutely.
latest information. It's going to be mind-boggling. So you have to kind of stay with us.
Oh, stay with us, y'all. It's going to be a ride, and we're all in it together. So stay tuned. We will be debuting our official first episode in January. We're thinking of doing it possibly monthly, but let's see what kind of feedback we get from you. Obviously, weigh in on some of the areas that you would like us to cover. We're doing this for y'all. So do weigh in, please. By the way, little announcement. So next week, Steve, I think you know Barbara Lamb,
Oh, yes.
the incredible regression therapist and lovely individual who's been in this game a long time on the experiencer side. She will be coming on the show next week, joined by a colleague named Sheila. And forgive me, I cannot call her last name. I think it's Seppa. We're going to be talking about the walk-in phenomena. You want to talk about phenomena? That's a phenomenon. So I want y'all to stay tuned for that next week. But in the meantime, Steve Mera. Go to Steve Mera's YouTube channel, y'all. You want to make a comment very briefly on the fact that you had to start up a new channel?
Well, of course, yeah. My channel was hijacked and emailed by somebody I know who I worked closely with for many years. And I disappeared off Facebook. Everybody was on YouTube and all sorts of places. And people saying, Steve, where's all your videos gone?
Yeah.
I was wiped from YouTube in 24 hours. That's almost 10 years, 12 years of work.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I was forced to create a new channel, which is Steve Mera Official. So, I'm starting again and we're getting there. Everybody knows about YouTube. It takes a bit of time to get it all going. But you got to be persistent in this game, if nothing else. So, and that's certainly what we're doing. So we are doing well.
We'll be sending people over there, and I know that you're going to be updating. Well, you have been updating a lot of content. There's a good amount of content over there already, but with our new venture, let's say, there'll be a lot more juicy stuff on both sides. So make sure you come back to Higher Journeys as well as Steve Mera Official. I'm going to sign off for now, and I do not believe what I'm seeing right now. Okay, just as I was about to sound off or sign off, guess who popped in? I'm going to bring him in.
Oh, wonderful. Fantastic.
For 5 minutes. Oh my God, we were about to sign off. Stephen Bassett. Everyone, Steve Bassett. I'm actually going to give you the floor, man. Listen, let's briefly talk about, I want your thoughts on what just happened 3 weeks ago with this UAP congressional hearing. We made a couple of comments. We were reserving the main talking points for you. So why don't you just give us a quick short sheet? I'm going to give you the floor.
Well, there's two things going on simultaneously, which is starting to get really interesting. The political legislative process is moving forward the way you would expect it to. The way it happens regarding a whole host of issues, small, medium, and large. Only in this case, the issue is the ET presence, right? The non-human presence. So we've had 4 tranches of legislation. We almost had a 5th, but it got sidetracked, probably mostly because deep into the election process, but still 4. Prior to that, there were none. We've had, 8, 9 hearings of various sizes, 2 very large ones in the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, we hadn't had a hearing since 1968. We've got organizations forming left and right. We've got members of Congress involved. They created a UAP caucus, literally in the House. We're literally headed for disclosure. The truth embargo is falling apart. The only reason it hasn't completely fallen apart and we aren't in the post-disclosure world right now is because we are in the middle of an extraordinary political process here, event, whatever you want to call it. It's off the charts in terms of its complexity, its implications, and its upset.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
complexity for sure. Yeah.
So getting anything done, right, is going to be hard, and trying to end the truth embargo particularly hard. So it's been delayed because of that. However, there's already talk about something breaking early in the Trump administration. He has addressed the issue. He's been asked about it 8 or 9 times, et cetera, et cetera. We're not probably going to get action prior to the end of this administration. Technically, we could if the Senate held a major hearing, which it could, but realistically, not going to happen. However, Nancy Mace, who is leading the House charge, she said she's going to have another hearing. She's also indicated that she would love to have the nuclear weapons tampering witnesses, of which I have discussed that with her. All of her entire committee has a full set of the affidavits of 9 of these witnesses. So that is kind of coming. So in that sense, I'm thrilled. I'm very happy. I'm very pleased. It's been a long time coming. That's happening. but there's something else happening, which I'm, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not out in the field, but I'm on social media. I monitor the news extensively. I kind of generally get a broad picture on things. Craft of unknown origin, which they are calling drones. All right, fine. That's what we call them. Drone means something that's not man flying around, whether it's small or whether it's 50 feet wide. If it's not piloted, it's a drone. But whatever, are swarming, and this has been going on for 3 years. They're swarming our ships. They're swarming around bases, military bases, and other sensitive issues, and sensitive places rather. And something like this is not easy to hide. And so, whether if they're swarming around a facility, yeah, but there's people that live nearby and they're seeing this, and so the government can't hide it. The government's actually acknowledging this.
The Pentagon, not to cut you off, but we spent the majority of our time today, Steve, talking about this very phenomenon, but the Pentagon is still denying the validity of these reports, aren't they? They haven't made any official.
I'm not aware of that. I am aware that the Pentagon has acknowledged they don't know what it is. That I'm aware of. Okay, and I can go dig the article. Let me just say that, like, where the Pentagon is now is that they don't know what it is. They have acknowledged that, which is an extraordinary thing when you think about it. Think about that. But they have no choice.
We don't know.
Right? Okay. Now, I happen to believe they do know what it is.
Yeah.
And so essentially, and I just put this out. Let me just read this to you. I put out this tweet. Interestingly enough, before I suddenly got distracted, I was buried in that, but I still had time to get on time with you. But still, let me just read this tweet to you, because it's hang on. Here is what I'm putting out there. I hope it goes viral. You never know. So let me get it here real quick, and here is what I put out. Okay, I'll read it verbatim. Okay, here is a suggested logic train regarding a recent phenomenon. 1. Those with a need to know within the U.S. government have known about technological, non-human presence in our world for decades. 2. Devices of either human or non-human origin, referred to as drones, are swarming U.S. military ships, bases, and other sensitive areas. 3. This is not permitted, and such objects, if known to be of human origin, would be shot down or captured. These are just facts. I'm not speculating here. 4. The destruction or capturing of these objects is not being reported. Therefore, the objects are of non-human origin, and aggressive action toward them is either viewed as dangerous or useless. To me, that is literally an equation that gives you a precise outcome. Now, after that, I go further. This leads to the most important aspect of the phenomenon. Why is it happening? Here the logic train has to pause and speculation begins. In that regard, I offer this consideration. The time frame of this extraordinary new development closely corresponds with the passage of 4 pieces of UAP legislation and a series of UAP-related congressional briefings. In other words, the collapse of the truth embargo. If, in fact, this recent phenomena is connected to the disclosure process, it is worth considering these events are a message from this technological non-human presence. Get it done. And at the end, I X tag, Twitter tag, Mace, Burchett, Luna, Moskowitz, Raskin, Grothman, Warner, Schumer, Rubio, Gillibrand, Rounds, Burleson, Ogles, Garcia, Carson, Ernst, and AOC. So there, in a nutshell,
Kudos.
is where I think this is. This can't go on much longer. All right. It simply cannot go on much longer. Something has got to give. Now, let me put it this way. Things are setting up for President Trump to disclose the ET presence. That's where history dropped. That's where the ball is dropping on this roulette wheel. All right, fine. There's 2 ways this can go about. This can happen. One is the new president will do what I think is the most appropriate way to go, and that is to hold a major hearing, or rather, I say hold, and to encourage his Republican friends in the Congress to hold a major hearing, preferably the Senate Intel Committee, bring in a substantial number of witnesses. There are many ready to go, including the nuclear witnesses, hold a 1-week hearing. It's all going to be filmed worldwide, blows the truth embargo up. He comes forward and discloses. That is what would be best. All the prep for that is pretty much already done, and that's a good thing. Okay. On the other hand, that may go a different way. The president has the power to unilaterally do this. In other words, the president could come out and say, I've talked to this person, I've talked to that person, I know the truth. This is non-human. This is extraterrestrial. I'm confirming it to you today. And now I'm expecting the Congress to start investigating the hell out of this. He could do it that way. Either way, it's disclosure. All right. Either way. And given, and the other thing I would say to the government in general, particularly the Department of Defense, which right now is in a substantial state of disarray, is that, look, if these incursions are happening elsewhere, like if they're happening in China or Russia, we might very well not know it. And so if this is happening elsewhere, this could very well prompt another head of state to take action, in which case the disclosure event will take place in another country. Another head of state will come out and say, we're confirming an ET presence. We have been dealing with this as a matter of security. We have not discussed it. We have not acknowledged it. But these things are swarming around our bases. This is unacceptable. We're confirming it now, and we're encouraging people to take action, in which case the president of the United States will be second or third or fourth. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of the global future, I don't know. In terms of the United States, it is a huge public relation problem for our politicians, for our organizations, for NASA, for the DOD, every one of which will have to acknowledge to the American people. We have known about this for 70 years, and now that Xi Jinping has confirmed it, we have to confirm it too. I assure you, this is not good. All right. In a nation where trust in government is collapsing, this will pretty much finish off the job, and it's not going to be good. And so I understand how hard this is. I understand the problems. This is history at the highest level. It's not easy. There's going to be mistakes, but a lot of people, including 10 million podcasters, have been trying to let them know you can get this done. You can get it done. And so it won't be our fault if it goes that way. And so that's my response to this issue.
Well, one quick question.
Yes, sir.
And then we're going to wind it down. Go ahead, Steve.
One quick question. So you've got the guy coming forward, Michael Kluber, US intelligence specialist, who's saying some, not all, some of these things flying around are likely ours. He says some. When he was asked to comment any further about that, he said, I can't say. Now, we also have Sean Kilpatrick, former director of Arrow. He's saying there's a likelihood that some of these things are US, maybe technology flying around. And now, of course, we had during the US hearings as well, the UAP hearings, Dr. Gallaudet, who said, on public record, to say he's been informed at a closed meeting with Arrow that they also believe that some of these things are man-made.
When did Gallaudet say that?
He's actually on the hearings, actually videoed a piece on that when he was actually questioned about, and he said that he had a meeting with Arrow, and he was introduced into this room, came into the room, and he said they told him that some of these things are likely ours.
All right, let's be clear here. Is he talking in this sense that some of the things that are turning up over these years are human? They're actually human, not human. Or was he specifically referring to the drone swarms of the last 2 years?
He was talking about some of, not necessarily. It wasn't, the word swarm wasn't used, but drones were in there. Absolutely.
I was there in the hearing, and I've been following it. I am not aware of anybody that has come forward and says that some of these drone swarms are ours.
Right.
If that happens, send me a link right away. And here's why this is important. Okay.
He said he had a closed meeting basically with Arrow, and he was informed personally that some of these things they believe is ours.
Some of what things? Are you talking about some of the drones that we're seeing around our ships and so forth?
Yes. Some of the drones.
Well, if that is true, let's say that's true. That means that not all of them are. That means some of them are non-human. Case closed. Okay.
Yeah.
And it could mean a couple of things. One, that we can't shoot them down. Obviously, if or we would, or maybe this way, we would. No. We can't shoot them down for one of two reasons. One, we can't, or two, it would be ill-advised. Now we
Yes.
might send up our own drones to try to engage them somehow, but none of that makes any sense. And the
No.
idea, and they talked about this with the Tic Tacs and so forth, the idea that the United States military, at least USAP programs, are flying U.S. human-made stuff around our ships or and so forth, and for whatever the hell reason, is just beyond logic. It literally indicates that these, quote, USAP programs have gone completely rogue and have no responsibility to anybody. And if they want to fly their special craft around aircraft carriers and raise holy hell, they can do so. This stretches credulity to the breaking point. And it's only brought up to try to explain away that the fact that, well, they can't be non-human, so whatever. All right. I'm going to make a simple point here. You go out in a piloted craft and you circle around one of our aircraft carriers, you are going to die. Okay. They are going to blow you out of the sky. Right. Do you realize that in the Ukraine, most of the damage that's blowing up hundreds and hundreds of tanks are militarized drones? Okay. One drone could sink a destroyer. It could create a massive explosion in a military base. And so the idea that was like, could be human. No. And in other words, the truth embargo forces people to find any possible other explanation. I don't play that game anymore.
Yeah,
right?
I want to. So obviously, we have two very different opinions here, which is great. I love this. But
I don't think we have two different opinions. I think two different perspectives.
Before you came on, Stephen,
Yeah.
Steve made a very, very compelling case as to how these could be human initiated. However, I want to bring this up, and then we're going to have to shut this down. But you're coming back, Mr. Bassett, because we need to continue this conversation.
I owe you one for sure.
So what I want to throw in here is, which we didn't get to today, and that is the idea. I always love the phrase, it's not this or that, but perhaps this and that, meaning, could there be some sort of a treaty between both human and non-human intelligence to create these scenarios? In other words, is there a phenomena aspect, although what we're seeing could be, some of them could be human made, but with the backup, if you will, of non-human intelligence? Question mark. I don't want you to get into it now because we don't have time. We got to shut it down. But we're gonna have you back, please, because this is where the rubber meets the road, Mr. Bassett. I'm so glad that you brought this up in the way you did. So, closing statement, then we're going to shut it down. Go ahead. You got the floor, Mr. Bassett.
Well, look, I want you to watch for any actions from any of the members of Congress, particularly focus on Reed. Mace, rather.
Mace.
She's very much intense on this. She might act sooner than later. Also be aware of any statements coming from the president-elect. And again, pay close attention to all the reports coming in. I wouldn't pay close attention to the infinite amount of speculation. There's already stuff out there about the fact that this is a false flag event designed to set up the idea of an alien invasion, whatever. All that's happening. That's fun. It's interesting. Try not to go there. Focus on the basics. Things are swarming. Drones are present. They're not being shot down. The government has said they don't know what they are. That's enough for right now. The government is impaled in a way on its own petard. It has created a truth embargo that's 70-some years old. And so as it's trying to deal with things toward the end of the truth embargo, it is very, very limited. It's painted itself in a corner.
Absolutely.
And so lastly, have some empathy for the United States government as it tries to extract itself from this fiasco.
It ain't easy. There's a lot to be made up for, but okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Listen, we're going to have to shut this down right now. But again, this is Steve Bassett. You didn't hear the news that Steve Mera and I will be co-hosting a series going forward about once a month called UAP and Beyond. And so with that, we both would like to formally invite you to come back and give us your inside scoop, because I know you got the inside scoop. So thank you for that. All right, guys, we're going to shut it down. Thank you, Steve Mera. Thank you, Steve Bassett. Thank you, everyone. Please weigh in. We need to hear from you. And the conversation will continue. I promise you that. So I'm going to sign off for now. I'm going to
All
say
right.
thank you, as always, for tuning in to Higher Journeys. Take care.